All right, I want to take a little bit of time to go over the review now that some of you have done it. I want to make sure that you understand if you were getting things wrong, understand maybe what you were doing wrong, and kind of like how to tackle these problems. So for 1, 2, and 3, you just had to set up different ratio. So when it wants a ratio, all you're doing is setting up a fraction. So the ratio part actually should be the easiest part. Don't overthink it. So this one, I want the sine of A. So first thing is I have SOHCAHTOA. And I also want to show you everything I'm going to be looking for tomorrow. I am going to be picky on work. So you're going to get credit and points for showing correct work, but then you're also going to get points for doing the work correctly. So, so for sine of A, you're just setting up the fraction. Sine from A is O over H. Opposite from A is 16 over the hypotenuse, no matter what, is going to be 34 because it's across from the 90-degree angle. So 16 over 34. And that's it. Leave it like that. Sine of B. So from B, you do opposite. From B, 30 is opposite, but 34 is still the hypotenuse. Next, cosine of A. Cosine is adjacent, or the leg next to it, over the hypotenuse. So for A, it's going to be 30 over 34. And don't reduce it, just leave it. And then cosine of B, the adjacent or attached leg is going to be 16 over the hypotenuse, which is 34. And then tangent is opposite over adjacent. So from A, the opposite side is 16 over the adjacent side is 30. And then tangent of B, opposite 30 over adjacent 16. So that's all I'm looking for 1, 2, and 3. Don't overthink them. For 4 and 5, you are using this same triangle to solve for X and then solve for Y. And they give you angle, this 57-degree angle. And again, we still have the SOHCAHTOA that you're going to be using. This entire worksheet or this entire review and the entire quiz tomorrow, you are using SOHCAHTOA, sine, cosine, or tangent. So make sure that the hardest part of this is determining whether you're doing the inverse to that -1 thing or not. Solving for anything on the outside means you are not using the inverse. So for number 4, they want us to solve for X. So I put my pencil on the angle. From the angle, X is the opposite. And then from the angle, the 25, they're always going to give you a side that you need to use. The 25 is across from the 90-degree angle, so that is your hypotenuse. So O and H, that means I'm going to use sine. So when I write this, I do sine of the angle equals O over H. And now, because X is on top, that's your red flag that you are going to multiply. So pull up your Desmos, change it to degree mode. Don't forget to change it to degree mode. And since I'm multiplying, I'm going to do 25 times function sine 57. And I get 20.96. So when I round that, I actually get 21. And again, I multiplied because X was on top. For number 5, they want us to find Y to the nearest tenth. So from the 57, Y is adjacent. And I'm not going to use that one now because I'm solving for Y. And then the 25 is still the hypotenuse. So adjacent and hypotenuse means I'm using cosine. So I do cosine of 57 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So Y over 25. So now I'm going to delete that out of there. I am going to, since the Y is on top, I'm going to multiply. So 25 times, and then function cosine 57. And I get 13.6. And that's it. For number 6 down here, they want us to solve or find the measure of angle M. So I'm solving for an angle that's on the inside. When I'm solving for an angle, that's going to be your red flag that you're using that inverse, that -1, sine, cosine, or tangent to the -1 power. So for these ones, again, first thing you do is you put your pencil on the angle. And I'm going to label my sides with either O, A, or H. From the M, 8 is opposite, and then the 15 is adjacent. Remember, the hypotenuse is always across from the 90-degree angle, and there's nothing labeled there. So if I have O and A, that means I'm using tangent. Now, I'm using tangent, but I'm doing the inverse because I'm solving for an angle. So tangent is O over A, 8 over 15. I need to see all of these things that I have written down. I need to see them. So even though you're just plugging things into your calculator, I still need to see it. So I'm going to do function tan to the -1, 8 divided by 15. And I get 28.1 degrees, or you could say, usually with angles, we round to the nearest whole number. Either one of these would be totally fine though. So there's 1 through 6. Let's take a look at the next, or the back of this. For number 7, again, we're solving for an angle on the inside of your triangle. So that is your red flag that you're using the inverse. So from the angle, across from the 90-degree angle, the 21 is your hypotenuse. The 15 is actually attached to X, so that is your adjacent side. So when you're thinking of SOHCAHTOA, A and H is cosine. But remember, I'm solving for an angle, so I'm going to use the inverse. And then cosine is A over H, so 15 over 21. So again, I can't stress enough, I need to see this. If I don't see that, you're going to lose points. So I exit out of there. Function cosine -1, 15 divided by 21, and I get 44.4 degrees. So you could do 44.4 degrees, or you could just do 44 degrees. I don't care. Either one is totally fine. Number 8, we are solving for a side, something on the outside. So we're not going to use the inverse. We're actually going to do some multiplication or some division. So here's my angle. X is opposite. Back to my angle. The 62 is adjacent. This side right here would be my hypotenuse because it's across from the 90-degree angle. So O and A means that I'm using tangent. So I do tan of my angle equals O over A. X is on top, so that means that I'm going to multiply. So I do 62 times function tan 40. And I get 52. .0, so 52. Number 9, so I'm solving for a side, so I'm not using the inverse. So I put my pencil on the angle. 8.9 is opposite. The X is the adjacent because, again, across from the 90-degree angle, this would be your hypotenuse. So O and A means I'm using tangent. So I do tan of my angle equals O over A. Now this one, my X is on the bottom. So since X is on the bottom, that means you're going to divide. So I do 8.9 divided by, and then I do tan 55, and I get 6.2. And then the last one on this review is number 10. We are solving for X. X is on the inside, so that means we are going to use the inverse. Since it's on the inside, we're using the inverse. So from the angle, now I'm going to label my sides. 19 is opposite. 11 is adjacent. Was almost everything on this back was, oh no, the top one was cosine. So O and A mean I'm using tangent, but I'm going to use tangent inverse. And then it's O over A. So once again, I can't stress enough that I need to see that. So I bring this back up, whoops, and I need to go to function, tan -1, 19 divided by 11. And I get 57.7, which would be 58 degrees. So either one of those would be totally fine. So a problem that I have been seeing you guys have some issues with are the last problem on the last few worksheets. And I want to go over one. So for 13 here, it asks you to find PS. So ultimately, you need to solve for this side. But you kind of need to tackle this as two separate triangles. In order to solve for a side, you need to have one of the actual lengths given to you, and you do not. So we need first in this problem to find QS. And like I said, I've had a decent amount of you guys reach out about this. So I need to solve for this side first by using just this triangle. So in this right triangle, they give you an angle of 28. And they give you a side of 39. And you need to find this missing side. So I'm going to call this Y just because I called that one X. So from the 28, the Y is opposite. And from the 28, the 39 is adjacent. Notice I'm covering this triangle up because when you do these, you need to deal with it triangle by triangle. So from the 28, again, this was opposite and this was adjacent. O and A means you're going to use tangent to solve for this side. So I would do tan of the angle equals O over A. And because your Y is on top, that means that you are going to multiply. So you do 39 times function tan 28. And you find this side to be 20.7. So that side right there is 20.7. Now, it wants you to actually find this side length. So I'm going to cover this triangle up. If this is 90, that means this is 90. So from this angle, conveniently, this is still opposite. From this angle, the X is across from the 90-degree angle, so that's the hypotenuse. So you have O and H, which means you're using sine. So I do sine of my angle equals O, which we found to be 20.7 over H, which is X. So since X is in the denominator on the bottom, I'm actually going to divide. So I take 20.7, 20.7, and divide that by sine of 76. There we go. So I find the length of PS to be 21.3. So it's one of those things where you have to really make sure that you kind of know what to do. I know these have been a little bit more difficult. There's a reason I'm definitely walking through this. It may pop up on your test where you have to solve for 2, or maybe even on your quiz where you have to solve for 2. So you have to solve for one side, use that to solve for the other side. So hopefully that helps. If there's any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, guys.